Military height and size requirements are 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, and Richard at 4'9" and 97 pounds didn't qualify. So it took him actually 3 years of letter writing to get a congressional waiver to allow him to join the Army. Once he was in the Army, he served with the 101st Airborne. When he got back to the States after his first tour, he went to Special Forces School and then was sent to Thailand with the 46th Special Forces Group. The third Special Forces Group 46 Company in Thailand.
We went over together.
Yeah,
I went over with him. We not personally knowing him, but the 2nd and 3rd Brigades left December 10th out of Fort Campbell and went to Oakland, then to Wake Island, the Philippines, and then to Benoit. So yeah, we took that same trip together. I'm glad that I know I took that trip with him now.
He talked to me a little bit. You know, here's the word. You know, here's a good part that people should think about. When Richard told me his life story, you know, the first thing that came to my mind is this is the most incredible. First, I didn't believe him. I felt bad. I was like, here's my friend for 15 years. This is delusional. There's no such thing as 4'9", 97-pound men in the military. I even know that. It's impossible. So I didn't believe him, and I kind of felt a little bad that, you know, my friend's that delusional. But that night, I went home and I checked on the internet, and I found an old newspaper article of him running with a rifle bigger than him, and I was like, this is maybe the most incredible story never to be told. So I went back to him the next day and I said, Richard, I can't imagine you overcame so much adversity in your life. You did the incredible, the impossible. You didn't just get into the military. You became a Green Beret captain and won the Silver Star. How did you go from there to on the streets? And I don't know how, but I want to tell your story. I mean, I'm just a cop. I'm not a, you know, in the back of my mind, I honestly thought I can convince somebody who really knew what they were doing to make the film, because I don't have any experience with that.
Right.
So he agreed, but he had 3 conditions. Condition number 1 was we start the project no matter what happens. You have to finish it. Number 2 was if there's ever a feature film, Hollywood film, Brad Pitt has to play him. And then number 3 was that he wants $1 million. So we shook on that. But here's the important part. In my mind, I thought, you know, I see Richard for 15 years. I thought we had forever. I didn't know we only had 10 days was the countdown until he passed. So I think it's an important lesson that never take anything for granted, that people are going to be here, really, you know, embrace things and live for the moment and really, you know, I don't want to make Richard's story a sad or depressing story. I think it's a story of an incredible underdog.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It should be looked at that. I'd rather talk about his life than his death. The death was really strange, and I can go as a police officer into all the bizarre things. And the person that killed him was also worked for another police department. It's pointless to me. I'd rather talk about his life.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, because I tell you what, he has more heart and gumption and dedication and servitude than anybody I ever know. I tell you that, especially at that shorter frame. It's kind of like he was so dedicated. He was going to get what he wanted to do, regardless, and he did it.
Yeah, that was one theme. Everyone I interviewed was that Richard was driven.
A decorated veteran. Decorated Vietnam veteran killed after a hit and run.
A 70-year-old decorated Vietnam veteran. Personal items and debris scattered across the street where a Vietnam veteran was hit by a car. The driver never stopped to help.
So tell us what made you write the book.
So we're going to have to go back. 1999, I transferred from another police department to the city of Aventura, which is in North Miami Beach, Florida. And that's where I saw, first saw Richard Flaherty. I used to see him at the movie theater. At the time, just see the guy show up probably pretty much every day. It was an off-duty job for me as a police officer to work for extra money in front of the movie theater. So we would start to say hello, and then later I would see him out in the streets, and that's when I kind of realized that he was homeless. Now, homeless in the sense that, he didn't have a home, but he was clean, he was well groomed, took care of himself. He was in good health as far as I can tell. As a police officer, we try to get people assistance, but Richard was a very proud guy. And I could tell he just didn't want me prying into his business. And, we kept it kind of light, and we started a friendship, and we were friends for about 15 years. A couple of times I tried to get him into, a shelter or something. But he's pretty adamant that he was fine. In summer of 2015, I never really pressed Richard about his life. We were sitting down, we used to go for coffee and sandwiches, and he said, Dave, it's time I'll tell you about my life and what I've done. And that's when he revealed this whole incredible saga to me. Now, one thing Richard didn't want me looking into, he was adamant about, is that in the 80s, 1980, he worked with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms in an undercover capacity to expose a theft ring from Fort Bragg. So he said, look, I'll tell you everything, but I don't want you looking into that part of my life. And I thought it was kind of a little strange. And he said, it could be bad for your career and a little dangerous for my health. I used to be a former detective, so it's, once you tell me something like that, I'm going to look into it. I tracked down the agent he worked with, Richard worked with, who was retired at the time, and he confirmed everything that Richard told me was true about the case. 6 hours later, Richard gets killed in the middle of the night in a strange hit and run. So it kind of just forced me to go on this journey of learning about my friend and trying to honor his life.
That's so complimentary. It's unbelievable. And where'd you start?
So, he was born in Stamford, Connecticut. So I went up there, I flew up there, and I met with family and friends. And I learned that, he was born with, his mom had a rare blood disease. I'm not going to get too much into the medical, something about RH positive. And then it caused his pituitary glands to stop working. So he was medically diagnosed with dwarfism even as a child. So before he took his first breath, they knew he was going to be a dwarf. They didn't think he was going to grow to the height of 4'9". They thought he was actually only going to get to like 4'5" or 4'7", but Richard outdid them and he grew up to 4'9". Like I said, he fought his way into the military. Supposedly, very well respected amongst all the men. In that first tour, he was awarded the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, and 2 Purple Hearts. And I do know that he was injured more times than the 2 times.
Right.
And then he went back, and he wanted to even take it further, and that's when he got his Green Beret, and he rose to the rank of captain. Richard was caught, like a lot of the guys, in 1971 in the RIF, the reduction in force, where the Army was downsizing. So he was let go, or his contract wasn't renewed as an officer. And that was a little bit of a tough pill for Richard to swallow. He always wanted to stay in training and help out and teach lessons of what he learned in Vietnam. So we know that, his trail gets a little murky, but he was in South Africa doing mercenary work or private military contract work. There was actually a bunch of Americans that went over there. I later learned that they called themselves the Crippled Eagles. Those were guys who were riffed out of the military that still wanted to fight communism. And a lot of them went to Africa, to Rhodesia, to what they felt continue the fight against the Chinese and the Russians, and even we know that some of the Cubans were over there training.
Yeah.
After that, he actually went back into the military as a reserve captain, and that's when he got caught up in that undercover case. Why he became homeless, it's really just a lot of factors. Obviously, there was some PTSD that wasn't treated properly, and I don't know. He was paranoid. Maybe all those operations that he did, you know, they were haunting him.
Yeah, that's an amazing background that you know so much about that. What was his life like just before he died?
You know, he was a proud man. He was a proud man. He really kept to himself. But he was healthy. He kept himself clean. His stuff, he kept all his things in a storage unit, which I was one of the few people that knew about. So we went over there. I tried to get somebody from his family to fly up and fly down and take control of it, but nobody could at the time. So I continue to this day to maintain that storage unit and keep his stuff in there, because otherwise they would have thrown it away. But inside that storage unit was almost every breadcrumb I needed to learn everything about Richard Flaherty.
Wow.
Letters, military documents, pictures. His beret was in there. I mean, there was just everything that was in there. There's one thing shocking at the end with Richard, but there's a lot of shocking things. So that time period that I knew Richard, that 15 years, that he was homeless, and it wasn't, people always ask me, but are you sure he was homeless? Yeah, he was homeless. He lived under a tree, and he was there 24/7. The shock was when I went into that storage unit, I found a little box with looked like everything from a spy movie, including his passport, and it revealed in that time that he was homeless that he traveled to Cambodia, Thailand, Amman, Jordan, Iraq, and he went to Venezuela twice. And nobody's really sure what he was doing, who he was working for. He was.
That's a special group of countries, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. He went to a little city in Venezuela called Puerto La Cruz, and I try to ask whatever federal agents that I'm still friends with, and they just said that's a very dangerous location.
Right.
We'd be there for a specific reason. That none of these places are for vacation, I guess, besides Thailand. But Iraq, certainly, Jordan. But I filed Freedom of Information Acts, and nobody's really given me any information on Richard. So that mystery is still open for any of your audience that wants to try to help solve it.
I think we should let it rest in peace, to tell you the truth.
I think sometimes you shouldn't look for answers you don't know. So,
right. You're not. Why kick a sleeping dog or whatever they say?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's not necessary. But he seemed like a real. I mean, obviously he went to jump school, right?
Yeah. There's, in the documentary, we interviewed a bunch of the guys that were with him, and they were just shocked because none of the equipment fit him. Everything was down to his feet. It wasn't down to his knees, his rucksack. They actually used to have to strap machine gun parts onto him because he didn't weigh enough to go down. So, and he would just float off. So I think just the first few times he jumped.
Really?
He went too far off his weight, and it took him too long to descend. So they ended up strapping machine gun parts on him, and they would always make him jump first, and they would see which way the wind blew him. So that's the wind detector. Okay, yeah, nice job. They throw a little rag out with a little weight on the bottom to do that, and then they circle the drop zone. So they threw Richard out, and he was light enough. Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah.